The Blood of Dawnwalker may not be built like a normal RPG, not in the usual sense, not as a clean divide between the main quest, the side quest, the optional errands, and the checklist of things waiting on the map until you decide to clear them. Based on what has been confirmed so far, this game appears to be built around something more urgent. Coen has a family to save, a vampire ruler to confront, and 30 days and 30 nights before that time runs out. That is the part of the Blood of Dawnwalker I find most interesting right now. Not only the vampires, not only the dark fantasy setting, not only the promise of choice and consequence, but the way the quest structure seems designed to make every meaningful action feel like a commitment. The game is still on release, so I want to be careful with the framing here. This is not a final verdict, and it is not a complete breakdown of every system. It is simply what we know so far based on confirmed details, developer comments, official previews, and hands-on coverage before launch. But what has been shown so far is enough to say this. The Blood of Dawnwalker does not seem to be asking, how many quests can we give the player? It seems to be asking, what are you willing to spend your time on? And that is a very different question. The central setup is simple. Coen has 30 days and 30 nights to save his family and ultimately confront Brencis, the vampire ruler at the center of Vil Sangora's new order. That is the spine of the game, so it would be misleading to say there is no main objective. There absolutely is. Coen's family has been taken, Brencis is the central threat, the clock is always hanging over the story. But based on confirmed information, the game does not appear to organize itself like a traditional RPG where the main quest is a long, heavily gated chain and the side quests sit around it as optional content. Rebel Wolves has described the structure as a narrative sandbox. That phrase is important because it suggests something more authored than a pure sandbox, but less rigid than a traditional quest chain. After the opening, the player knows the central objective, but the path around that objective appears to be far more open. You can prepare before going after Brencis. You can search for allies, spells, items, and strength. You can pursue activities in different orders. You can ignore some of them, you can fail some of them, and some may never be discovered at all. And that changes the feeling of the whole structure. In many RPGs, missing content feels like a mistake. A quest failed, a marker disappeared, a reward was lost. The game quietly tells you that you did something wrong. The Blood of Dawnwalker appears to be aiming for something less clean. If you miss something, the story keeps moving. If you fail something, the world does not necessarily reset around your failure. If someone dies, that absence can reshape what happens next. And if you choose not to act, that inaction can still be recognized as a choice. That is a difficult promise to make, but it is also one of the most compelling parts of the game's design, because the clock is not moving constantly. Free exploration does not consume time. You're not losing days just because you are walking through the world, looking around, or trying to understand the valley. Based on confirmed information, time advances through meaningful commitments. Major actions tied to quest progression can move the clock forward, some side activities can cost time, some dialogue choices can cost time. Even learning certain abilities can carry a visible time cost. So the pressure is not simply, hurry up or the game will punish you, it's more specific than that. The pressure is decision making. Before you commit to something important, the game is supposed to tell you how much time it will consume. That means the tension is not just about finding the next objective, it is about deciding whether that objective is worth spending part of Coen's remaining life on. The game appears to be turning time into a kind of currency, and once time becomes currency, every activity has to justify itself. A villager needs help, a mystery point towards a hidden place, an ally might be worth finding, a monster is causing trouble, somewhere in the valley there may be a spell, an item, or a piece of information that makes the road to Brencis less impossible. In another RPG, the answer is usually simple: do everything. Clear the map, finish every quest, talk to everyone, delay the final confrontation until the world is clean. The Blood of Dawnwalker seems built to resist that instinct, not because exploration itself is punished, but because meaningful progress costs something. Every major commitment asks you to weigh one possibility against another, and in a game about a family waiting somewhere under vampire rule, that choice has a different weight. That is where the day and night split becomes more than atmosphere. Coen is not the same person at all hours. By day, he is closer to human. By night, his vampire side opens up different possibilities. Based on what has been shown so far, most quests can be approached by day or night, and that choice can change the route, the available abilities, the social options, the stealth possibilities, the combat encounters, and sometimes even which version of a scene or enemy you get. That is not just a lighting change, it changes the logic of the quest. During the day, the game appears to lean more into social interactions, investigation, human magic, and routes where talking, observing, or moving through public spaces may matter more. At night, Coen has access to more supernatural tools, stealthier traversal, shadow step movement, beating, stronger vampire abilities, and in some cases, more aggressive encounters. A daytime path might give you information, a nighttime path might give you access. A human approach might keep certain doors open, a vampire approach might solve the immediate problem while creating a different kind of cost. That is the kind of design that could make the same objective feel unstable in an interesting way. The question is no longer only what do I do, it becomes when do I do it. And in a game with 30 days and 30 nights, timing is not just mechanical, it is narrative. The confirmed quest examples already suggest a wide range of activities, but the most useful way to look at them is not as a feature list, it is how they fit into the larger pressure of the campaign. Coen can help villagers, he can gather herbs, he can track physical clues like following footprints in a missing pig quest, he can investigate monster trouble, he can use supernatural tools like Compel Soul to speak with the dead and uncover clues leading toward hidden places. Some quests may involve dialogue, others may involve stealth, traversal, combat, investigation, or moral decisions. But the larger point is that these activities are not floating outside the main story as disconnected tasks. They appear to exist around a central problem. How much can Coen afford to do before the end? Does he arrive at Brencis prepared with allies and stronger tools? Does he rush forward because his family cannot wait? Does he spend time helping people in Vale Sangora, knowing that every commitment may close off something else? Does he lean into the vampire side because it solves problems faster? Does he hold back even when restraint costs him? Those are the questions that could give this quest system its identity, and the consequences shown so far are not only theoretical. The confirmed examples already point in that direction. We have seen or heard about NPC deaths, missed opportunities, failed questlines, and outcomes where inaction can leave people suffering. One example involves ignoring certain objectives and later finding out that Gremla, one of the villagers, has been strung up and Coen's mother, Esme, has been killed. Another example describes putting off a missing man lead too long only to find that he is already dead by the time you arrive. That is the kind of consequence that changes the emotional texture of the world. Not a pop-up saying, quest failed, a person gone, an opportunity closed, a relationship altered. A route through the story changed by the simple fact that Coen did not act quickly enough or did not act at all, and the world response appears to extend beyond individual quest outcomes. Brencis is not just sitting at the end of the game waiting for Coen to arrive. Based on the confirmed material, he appears to function as an active antagonist across the valley. Undermining his operations can increase Coen's notoriety, and that can lead to edicts, harsher measures, increased patrols, more soldiers on roads and in villages, and even city lockdowns that change how the world is traversed. That is one of the most promising ideas in the whole structure, because if it works, the antagonist is not only a final boss or a story presence, he becomes part of the quest system. The more Coen pushes against the regime, the more the regime can push back. That kind of reactivity could make Vale Sangora feel less like a static open world and more like a place tightening under pressure. A valley where your actions do not only resolve isolated questlines, but draw attention, change movement, and make the occupying power more aggressive. Failure, from what has been described so far, does not seem to mean the story simply ends. Even the 30-day limit is not being framed as a hard game over screen. If time runs out, the game appears to continue, but not cleanly. The family may suffer, the story may branch, the road to Brencis remains, but what Coen carries into that confrontation may be very different. Failing quests does not necessarily make the campaign impossible to complete. Based on what has been shown so far, the main objective remains even if part of the journey goes badly. You may abandon plot lines, important characters may die, opportunities may close, but the game appears designed to keep moving forward. with the consequences folded into the playthrough instead of stopping it outright. That is exciting because it means failure can become part of the story instead of a wall outside of it. Most RPGs want players to see the best version of their content, so they protect us from our worst decisions. They let us reload, retry, optimize, and clean up the world until the playthrough feels complete. The Blood of Dawnwalker seems interested in a messier kind of journey. A playthrough can be wounded and still continue. A world where the final confrontation may be shaped not only by what you accomplished, but by what you ignored, lost, or could not save in time. If that works, it could make every player's route through the game feel authored without being identical. And that is also where the design becomes risky, because a system like this can easily become stressful in the wrong way. The idea of a 30-day limit is powerful on paper, but players react differently to timers. For some, it creates urgency and consequence. For others, it creates anxiety. The moment a game tells you that time is limited, some players stop exploring naturally and start optimizing everything. They stop asking, what feels right for my coin? They start asking, what is the correct order? That is the danger. A narrative sandbox can become a spreadsheet if the pressure is too opaque. The confirmed time cost transparency helps. Knowing how much time an action will consume should make the decision feel fairer. Free exploration, not consuming time, also helps because it means the world can still be explored without constantly draining the clock. But there are still unknowns. We do not know how clear the quest guidance will be. We do not know how aggressively content expires. We do not know the full rule set for missed quests. We do not know how many consequences are major, how many are local, or how many feed into the ending. Those unknowns matter because the entire system depends on trust. If players understand the rules, time pressure can feel meaningful. If they do not, it can feel like the game is punishing them for information they never had. There's also the risk of FOMO. If quests can be skipped, failed, or never discovered, some players will feel the urge to look everything up before making a decision. That would undercut the entire point. The best version of this structure is one where missing content feels like part of your story, not like a failure to consume the game correctly. That is a hard balance to strike. For me, that is the line the Blood of Dawnwalker has to walk. The system sounds exciting because it can make quests feel more meaningful than they do in many open-world RPGs. Not because every quest has to be massive, but because every commitment exists under pressure. Every delay has context, every action has the possibility of closing another door. It is risky for the same reason. That pressure could give the game its identity, or it could make some players afraid to engage with the world on their own terms. And until the game is out, that part remains unclear. What has been confirmed is the intention. One urgent goal, 30 days and nights, optional activities built around that pressure, and a world that can respond when Coen acts or when he does not. That is the foundation. The question is whether the full game can make those pieces feel natural, fair, and emotionally meaningful over an entire playthrough. Because if it can, the Blood of Dawnwalker's quest system may become the thing that defines its identity. Not the thing around the story, the thing that gives the story its shape. Coen's journey is not just about reaching Brencis, it is about what he chooses to spend his limited time on before that confrontation arrives. Who he helps, who he leaves behind, what he learns, what he sacrifices, what he becomes when the clock keeps moving and the valley refuses to wait. That is why I'm paying attention to the system, because the best version of the Blood of Dawnwalker is not simply an RPG with choices, it is an RPG where choices have weight because time has weight. Where a quest is not just something you complete, it is something you decide to make room for. And in a story about a man trying to save his family before the light runs out, that could make all the difference. Because Coen cannot do everything. That may be the point. He has 30 days and 30 nights, a family somewhere in the dark, a valley breaking under vampire rule, and a curse inside him that may become either a weapon, a temptation, or both. The question is not whether the game lets you clear every shadow from Vale Sangora. The question is what Coen chooses before time runs out. And if Rebel Wolves can make that pressure feel fair, readable, and personal, then the Blood of Dawnwalker's quest may not feel like a list of things waiting to be completed. They may feel like the shape of the story itself. Let me know what you guys think of this system in the comments down below. If you guys found this video interesting, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more Blood of Dawnwalker content. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.